Bulldogs, welcome back to Pokemon Month. My annual celebration of the Pokemon series continues as we are this much closer to the release of Pokemon Sun and Moon. Just this morning, they released a brand new trailer revealing the final evolutions of the Alolan starters, and they are freaking awesome. I thought about making a whole separate video about them. What I will say is I'm completely satisfied by them, and I absolutely love the final evolution of Rowlet, otherwise known as Decidueye. I also really love Incineroar as well, and while Primarina is not exactly my favorite final starter evolution, I can appreciate it for its beauty. Not to mention Red and Blue are coming back, and that's a discussion for another day. Today it is time for another Top 10 video. Last time I counted down my top 10 favorite Pokemon that look like a cat. And as they say, every dog has its day, and that day is today! I am going to count down my top 10 favorite Pokemon that resemble dogs. Now, a couple of ground rules going into this list. This is my list. I make the rules. I can break any rule that I want. And if a Pokemon looks like a dog, sounds like a dog, and acts like a dog, it could potentially appear on this list. And despite the fact that a lot of Pokemon take their name and inspiration from real-life canines, that doesn't necessarily make them dogs at the end of the day. They're still just simply Pokemon, but these are the ones that come closest to looking like your real-life favorite man's best friend. Also, keep in mind, there's a pretty damn good chance that some of your favorite dog-like Pokemon are not going to make it on this list, so instead of throwing a shit fit, throw me a bone here. Just tell me what are your favorite Pokemon from the series that resemble a dog. Tell me in the comments section below. And so, without further ado, let's go ahead and count down my top 10 favorite dog Pokemon. Breaking out at number 10 is the oh-so-stylish Furfrou. That's right, we're starting out number 10 with a French Poodle Pokemon. Furfrou is a Pokemon that originally I didn't really care for all that much, until I learned a little bit more about its gimmick. You see, just like real-life poodles, you can actually trim and style your Furfrou into 9 distinct various forms. There's Star, Diamond, Heart, Pharaoh, Kabuki, Lorraine, Matron, Dandy, and Debutante. And just like in the real world, Furfrou are something of a status symbol. According to its Pokédex entry, historically in the Kalos region, these Pokémon were the designated guardians of the king. That means the king of the Kalos region always had a poodle by his side. While not the most intimidating dog, it's still one of my absolute favorite from the series. Laughing its tail off at number 10 is Poochyena and Mightyena. While this Pokemon certainly takes a lot of its inspiration from hyenas, there's definitely a lot of inspiration from the dogs in this Pokemon, especially its very first form, Poochyena, who is absolutely adorable and also pretty horrifying all at the same time. I absolutely love the designs of these Pokemon, but Poochyena in particular has always stuck out to me. When I first saw it, my first thought was, it's basically kind of like a poor man's Houndour. But still, I became more surprised as I managed to use this Pokemon and see its capabilities in battle. And despite the fact that the distinctively Dark-type Poochyena is a cute little dog, this is something that you do not want to mess with. Poochyena is an omnivore. It will eat absolutely anything. A distinguishing feature is how large its fangs are when compared to its body. This Pokemon tries to intimidate its foes by making the hair on its tails bristle out. Essentially, this is a Pokemon that knows how to use its intimidating appearance, and it peacocks its foes to death. That being said, it's one hell of a cool pup. Painting his way into your heart at number 8 is the Beatnik Beagle, Smeargle. Smeargle has always been one of my favorite Pokemon from Generation 2, taking a lot of its inspiration from real-life painters, and of course the real-life dog known as a beagle. But I think one of my favorite aspects of this Pokemon has to be its unique ability and move known as Sketch, which allows it to permanently copy the last move used by any of its opponents. I also really love the unique factor that Smeargle actually uses its tail as a paintbrush. It's been said that Smeargle marks the boundaries of its territory using a bodily fluid that leaks out from the tip of its tail. Over 5,000 different marks left by this Pokemon have been found in the Pokemon universe. Not to mention, it's one of those Pokemon that in the English version just has the perfect name, which is the ultimate pun on what it's based on. A Smear Beagle. A Smeargle. Shocking everyone, at number 7 is the electrified canine, Manectric. I have to be honest, I originally did not care for either Electrike or Manectric when I saw them for the very first time in Ruby and Sapphire. It wasn't only until years later when I discovered that Manectric had a Mega Evolution that I truly started to appreciate this Lightning Bolt Pokemon. I will say that I did like its initial designs, but they have absolutely nothing on its Mega Evolution form, which just truly emphasizes the fact that this is indeed an electric Pokemon. Really, the only word I can choose is badass. My absolute favorite word in the world. What I will say is, the Mega Evolution of Manectric has made me appreciate this Pokemon enough to actually start using it on my team a couple of times. That and the fact that it's another one of those electrical Pokemon with an amazing Pokedex entry. It's been said that Manectric discharges strong electricity from its mane. The mane is used for collecting electricity in the atmosphere. This Pokemon actually has the ability to create thunderclouds above its head, essentially turning this pooch into the living embodiment of lightning. Bringing the fire at the number 6 spot is Arcanine and Growlithe. I don't think there was any way that I could have gotten away with this list without at least mentioning Arcanine and Growlithe, who are two of the most classic Pokemon from the series. So incredibly distinctive from Generation 1, not to mention Arcanine himself is just so awesome looking. It's actually known as a legendary Pokemon despite the fact that it doesn't necessarily have that status. Growlithe is pretty much your typical Pokemon puppy. It eventually evolves into Arcanine when it's given a Firestone, and that's when this Pokemon truly comes into its own, almost looking like some sort of legendary Chinese mythological beast. Arcanine are known for their high speed. It's actually been said they're capable of running over 6,200 miles in a single day and night. The fire that blazes wildly within this Pokemon's body is the source of its true power. And living up to its inspiration as a dog, its magnificent bark conveys a sense of majesty. Anyone hearing it can't help but grovel before the badassery of Arcanine. Fighting his way to the number 5 spot is the hardest steel Lucario and Riolu. It's kind of impossible to deny the awesomeness that is Lucario. The fact that it is indeed a canine-like Pokemon, definitely taking a lot of inspiration from the Egyptian Anubis, Lucario has definitely become one of the biggest pop cultural icons from the Pokemon series, having a movie dedicated to it, being the poster boy for Mega Evolution, and even being a playable character in the Super Smash Bros. Series. Changing forms at number 4 is the dragon type known as Zygarde. I already know what you're thinking. Zygarde. How in the hell does this thing count as a dog Pokemon? Well, there's actually a pretty important reason for it. Zygarde is a legendary Pokemon which has the unique ability to split into various forms. The form which was introduced in X and Y is a typical dragon snake-looking Pokemon with a typing of dragon and ground. It also has a complete form which makes it look like a friggin' transformer and even some cell forms in a core form. However, it has another one known as its 10% form which takes the form of a dog. That's right, Zygarde, for some reason, transforms into this weird Doberman Pinscher looking thing with a black and green color scheme, and I'll be damned if it isn't one of the coolest looking Pokemon I've ever seen. Look, I love its snake form, I love the mech form, but something about this dog form is just plain awesome. I especially just love the little subtleties in its design, the fact that some of its cells are actually reaching out from its neck, almost appearing as if it's a scarf. This is a Pokemon that I cannot wait to use in Pokemon Sun and Moon, as this form was unobtainable in X and Y and in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. So I can't wait to learn a little bit more about this mysterious dog and what it's truly going to be capable of. Howling at the Moon at number 3 is Rockrough and Lycanroc. Initially, when they introduced Rockrough, I really wasn't all impressed by its design. My initial thoughts were, oh yeah, great, another dog Pokemon. I'm sure it's going to be a boring normal type, but I was shocked to learn that Rockrough is indeed a rock type. Not only that, but it has one of the most unique evolutionary processes that I've seen in the series. When it evolves, it'll transform into a Lycanroc. However, Lycanroc has two very distinct forms. In Pokemon Sun, when Rockrough evolves into Lycanroc, it'll transform into a typical-looking dog-wolf Pokemon, which is pretty damned intimidating, and I love the little subtleties of its design. The fact that it has this, rock collar that's coming out, jutting from its neck. But if you evolve it in Pokemon Moon, it'll transform into its Midnight form, which is very reminiscent of a werewolf. I'm not going to lie, I love the Midnight form 50 times more than the Midday form, if only for the fact that it looks so different than the other previous ones. Essentially, the Midday form just kind of looks like a bigger version of Rockrough, but the Midnight form just looks so intimidating, with the red fur, the sharp claws, and those glowing red eyes. It's absolutely perfect. I'm really glad that we finally got a werewolf-styled Pokemon in the series. Coming in at number 2 is the Hound from Hell, Houndour and Houndoom. I've talked about Houndoom multiple times in the past, but both Houndour and Houndoom are just so freaking metal. Houndoom in particular, this fire dart type Pokemon, is one of the most intimidating that I've ever seen. According to its Pokedex entry long ago, people imagined its eerie howls to be the call of the Grim Reaper. It's also been said that in a Houndoom's pack, the one with its horns raked sharply toward the back serves as a leadership role. These Pokemon choose their leader by fighting amongst themselves. Claws, teeth, fire, Houndoom has it all. It also has a pretty kick-ass mega evolution. Ultimately though, my favorite thing about Houndoom has got to be its design. It's the perfect representation of fire and dark type. A lot of the fire, of course, coming from the fact that it has a devil's tail, not to mention the dark type aspects, being covered in these bony protrusions all over its body, not to mention those incredibly kick-ass horns. And finally, coming in at number 1 are the fairy Bulldogs themselves, Snubbull and Granbull. Okay guys, it's time for a little confession time. When it comes to dogs, I do have a favorite breed. I love English Bulldogs. Their wrinkly faces, the funny snorting sounds that they make, their short and stocky bodies, English Bulldogs are incredibly cuddly. And it feels really weird for me saying this because I myself am actually a fan of Georgia Tech football. And for those who don't know, Georgia Tech and UGA fans do not get along that well. That being said, I absolutely love Snubbull and Granbull. Granbull in particular, with Snubbull basically just being the adorable fairy-type bulldog. But Granbull is where things start to get a little more badass. It is also worth mentioning that Granbull and Snubbull only became fairy types in Pokemon X and Y. Before, they were basically just your typical normal-type Pokemon. But honestly, giving them the fairy type has only opened up their playability even more. The first thing that you'll probably notice about Granbull is, damn, that thing has a really ferocious-looking jaw with those massive teeth literally rising up over its head. That's definitely one of the coolest things about Granbull is how incredibly intimidating it is. Granbull has a particularly well-developed lower jaw. The enormous fangs are heavy, causing the Pokemon to tip its head back for balance. Unless it is startled, it will not try to bite indiscriminately. However, despite its incredibly intimidating appearance, Granbull is very timid, but if it becomes enraged, it will strike with its huge fangs. This is one Pokemon that truly lives up to the ideals of man's best friend. And so there it is, ladies and gentlemen. Those were my top 10 favorite dog Pokemon. Did any of your favorites make the list? Do you have a favorite dog Pokemon? Please tell me in the comments section below. And make sure to stay tuned to the channel. There's going to be a number of other cool Pokemon videos which are going to be released as we lead up to the release of Pokemon Sun and Moon. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you guys have any other Pokemon-themed videos or ideas or topics that you want me to talk about, please tell me in the comments section below. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. That way you'll be able to see all of our latest Pokemon videos, as well as our anime reviews and even our weekly podcast show. And make sure to throw a Pokeball towards that like button and leave me a comment or two. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I will see you next time. And as always, stay dandy, baby!